The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fed15 podcast, presented by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we discuss the latest news and info that Feds need to know in 15 minutes-ish or less. Sometimes I get a little long-winded. So whether you're a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, we've got you covered. So grab your coffee, your energy drink, green juice, whatever gets you rolling. Kick back. We'll tell you what you need to know but might have missed. We're your host. I'm Dan Sipe, and I am joined by the incomparable and irrepressible Katelyn Murray.
Hello, all. Hope your holiday season is off to a nice start and you're, still full of turkey leftovers from last week.
and hopefully Saint Nick visited a little early with your back pay.
Yes.
Put that in your stocking this week. And if it isn't, stay tuned. It's coming. They seem to be sorting that out fairly quickly. So thank goodness there. As everybody can see, I'm in pink today because that's my deal. For the threat of a shutdown, it's in black. And when it resolves, it's in pink. So hopefully next go around, I'll be able to be in my normal blue collared shirt to go along with this because, again, shutting down the government was never meant to be a legislative tool. So let's hope all the good folks up on the Hill can start to learn and internalize and remember that. Otherwise, I think we need to get a constitutional amendment that says you can't do that. You can do other things, but you can't do that. That's just my thought, my editorial opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, although, in crazy years like 2025, even some of that Constitution stuff isn't holding up as well. But all of that aside, let's look at our two articles that we're spotlighting this week from the STWS website. So it's kind of been like we're a little bit like getting back in the saddle again on our been a articles, minute. Right? Yeah.
It's been a minute. We talked cookies, we talked sausage, then everybody made me cry.
Yeah. It was the annual Make Dan Cry episode. Look forward to it every year.
Absolutely, man.
No, but in all seriousness, it was wonderful to have our teammates with us last episode. That was a really fun time, really wonderful conversation with everyone. But I'm excited to kind of get back into the heart and soul of what the Fed15 is all about, which is, looking at what you need to know in the federal space this week. So Dan is going to talk with us on an interesting piece about what feds who are retiring before 62 really kind of need to watch and look out for, particularly with the OBBBA piece of legislation that was passed over the summer. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about a topic that has been really popular in our meetings as of late with our clients, with where the media is at and kind of all of the whispers on the street, weathering market swings, smart TSP moves during volatility. A lot of us are kind of feeling like volatility is right around the corner. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we're going to talk about maybe what you need to be looking at there in the TSP if we are headed for some choppy markets. But before we get there, Dan, talk to us about what we need to know if we are planning to retire before that magical age of 62.
Absolutely. And, those of you who have worked with me personally know that massive TSP balance is one of the things that is pretty much a must-have for that, but we'll get into that in a second. So I want to talk a little bit, though, about the FERS supplement and the threat that it just survived, because that was going to throw a lot of people a heck of a curve, especially if they were going out on VERAs, or generally, or discontinued service retirement. So Congress debated eliminating the FERS supplement, but it survived in the final law. So just a sliver of history here. Why does the FERS supplement exist? So when FERS was created, they tried to make it mirror as close as they could to CSRS. And at the time, and I'm old enough to have been here doing this during that time, a CSRS employee could retire at 55 with 30 years. Well, there was no Social Security component then. We know that's subsequently changed as far as there's no longer windfall elimination provision. But getting back to FERS, if a FERS employee was going to be able to go out at 55, there was going to be something missing because you can't claim Social Security until 62 at the earliest. So the FERS supplement was created to make it as close to CSRS in its retirement eligibility as possible. So people got really stoked. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm FERS, but I can still retire at 55 or 57 as it is now. So I'll get the FERS supplement. So yes, that can be critical. But if you go through some of our writings and our podcasts and everything else, we tell you it's not a panacea. Okay. Now, again, let's go back to the original threat. What was proposed for the OBBBA? The FERS supplement would have been eliminated for anyone retiring on or after January 1st of 2028. So the impacted people would be FERS employees, including law enforcement officers and firefighters, air traffic controllers, and just regular employees in their late 50s. Okay. So for early retirees, the supplement wasn't going to be a luxury. It was going to be central. So in the final reconciliation, FERS supplement was preserved. There were also proposals to move from a high 3 salary for computing the pension to high 5. That was dropped. So the general framework remains unchanged, but I would say keep it in the back of your mind that they came looking for this before and it could happen again. So there are still vulnerabilities here. But here's another thing. Early retirees should avoid focusing on a single benefit as the driver for them staying or going, because again, that can change. So don't lean too heavily on that FERS supplement. I would prefer you treat it as a bonus, not a foundation. And that's why I will say, if you are going to go out at MRA, minimum retirement age, you also need the other MRA, which is massive retirement assets. Because remember that FERS supplement, which is a welcome thing to get if you have to go out, if you've been pushed out or something like that, no cost of living adjustment for it. There's also an earnings test, just like Social Security. So if you earn too much, you can lose it. And unlike Social Security, you can't recover the benefit later. Okay, so don't lean too heavily on it. So lean into TSP and even outside investments, because what you do out there, a bunch of people on the Hill can't decide how you can use it, or at least not easily decide that. The other thing, stay informed. You know me, I think we should be your homepage because we're pumping the information out. But if not, we absolutely belong in your favorites because we're going to keep kicking that information out. And consider staying until 62. Pretty pleased with sugar on top. Get that 10% bonus. Okay. Ed Zerndorfer did a great comparison. It's on the site about what are the advantages of the FERS supplement versus staying till 62. And you will see staying till 62 wins all the time. Okay. So in sum, supplement is attacked, but no benefit is guaranteed forever. Smart planning equals being proactive with resilient strategies that protect your retirement regardless of what's being debated in Congress. And if you're fuzzy on any of this, hit us up at STWS at STWServe.com. This is what we're here for. We will help you. So,
yeah, I couldn't tell you how many times, Dan, in our work with clients, like I have clients who, and not just a few, like I have clients who got in early, you know, they built, you know, an over 30-year career and they're out before 62 because, you know, they're weighing all of the different, you know, financial decisions versus life decisions, and for whatever reason, for them, they make an exit prior to that 62 date, and they just disregard the supplement. I couldn't tell you how many clients I have who leave federal service. If you're leaving in your 50s, it's early enough that you could have a secondary career that maybe is a little bit less stressful than your federal position. And they just, that earnings cap is there and it exists, but they just blow right past it. And when we do the analysis of, is it worth it for you to not work and not fund any retirement accounts and get this $1,800, $2,000 a month pre-tax, it's just not worth it in a lot of cases. And so I think, I'm glad that it still exists. I'm very glad that it wasn't taken away, but I think that it is definitely not the panacea that a lot of times people think it is. And I think they get hung up in, it's the same situation when we see people using sick leave instead of annual leave so that they get a bigger annual payout. Yeah, you get that bigger annual payout up front. But your sick leave can be converted to pension time, which, will increase your income for the rest of your life indexed for inflation. So I think it's a good piece of advice to get an analysis done, have a part 2 meeting with Serving Those Who Serve where we sit down and we go through your comprehensive benefits report and we show you, here's what's possible if you do stay till 62. If you don't want to stay until 62 and you understand, the financial repercussions of that, you can make a new plan that doesn't always involve the supplement, depending on what your goals are. So yeah, I think very good advice to be found there in that retiring before 62.
And as we're just all recovering from our Thanksgiving feast, okay, the supplement is the gravy, not the turkey.
Yeah, there you go. Love that. All
so
right.
Katelyn,
well,
tell us what our folks should be doing, because the market's moving around a bit. Goes up 700 and ends up negative, and Bitcoin has given up a whole lot of its values. There's all kinds of things happening out there. What can folks do? You're the financial lady. Help us out here.
Well, so, I'll preface this by saying, there's objective reality and then there's subjective reality. The media deals a lot with subjective reality, right? So the narrative that's going on right now, and in some cases for good reasons, the narrative that's going on is like everything is like too overvalued and the market is too high. And so because of that, we must be headed towards disaster, right? Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. I don't have time for it on this podcast episode, but I could show you a million headlines where, just before a huge market rally or a huge market increase, there are headlines that say, sell it all. It's all going to Hades in a handbasket, right? That is always sort of a prediction that is on the horizon, right? And taking that with a grain of salt, looking at this from a financial psychology perspective, the reason for that is because papers sell when people are afraid.
Sure.
There is no greater motivator for buying something or doing something or taking action than fear. Now, here's the thing. It's also impulsive. When we are motivated to do things via fear, you've seen this, when people make big life changes, they have a health scare and they decide that they're going to change everything about their lifestyle. It is rare that somebody is able to stick with that in the long term, right? And if you are, it's not because you're motivated by fear. It's because you've found a new identity or you have found things that are on that more positive side of things to motivate you. You have kind of made that change central to who you are. But fear is a great motivator if all you need somebody to do is buy a paper or subscribe to a service or spend a little money, right, up front. So keep that in mind as you are watching media coverage, even if you're not actively paying money, if your eyes are on the screen, if the screen's on in your house, they are making money, okay? And one of the easiest ways to captivate us is with fear. That's why those lights flash red and green. It hardwires our monkey brains. So all of that said, there are some legitimate reasons to be concerned. The S&P we have talked about before. I talk about this all the time in client meetings. Right now, the S&P is very overvalued and it is very overconcentrated. And that is a cause for concern. And
Sure.
I do think that at some point we will be headed for correction there. However, at the point that we are at right now, right, in the timeline, this has been a very good year in the markets, by and large, right?
Yes.
We're in a good place. So when you're in a good place, you can't write fear stories about being in a bad place. So what do you write about? The bad times are coming right around the corner. Something to be afraid of right around the corner, right? So just take all of that with a grain of salt. That said, volatility does happen. On average, we see a bear market about once every 7 years. We had a bear market in 2022. We will have I hope, if you're listening to this, that you will experience another bear market, because what it means is that you will live long enough to experience that. So we need to be prepared, right? We need to know how to weather these conditions and how to be prepared. So what can you do in your TSP? Up front and up top, right? You've got options with TSP. If you retire, you become mobile in your TSP, and then you can move it around, right? You move it into an IRA, you can do all that fun stuff. There's pros that come with that. There's cons that come with that. I'm absolutely not making a recommendation to do that. If you are 59 and a half and still working, you also have flexibility in your TSP. You can consider a rollover strategy. This article is not about rollover strategies. What this article is about is I'm either not 59 and a half yet and still working, or I'm, for whatever reason, committed to weathering the storm in the TSP. I'm not looking at anything outside of that, right? So what can I do, right? Consider your fund options. You've got 5 core funds. You've got G and F on the fixed income side. You've got S, C, and I on the equity side, okay? The L funds are pre-made mixes of all of those core 5 funds. They are not new funds. They are not different funds. They don't give you any additional diversification. Think of the L funds as a pre-made mix for you to get some diversification without having to choose what you're going to put in C, S, I, F, G, et cetera.
Gotcha.
So first thing I'm going to say, when we are in a state of fear or concern or worry, or dare I say panic, action feels really good to our lizard brain, because action means we get away from danger, right? That is really great if the danger is a bear. It's not so good if the danger is complex portfolio dynamics and market trends, right? Sometimes the best thing that you can do is nothing, right? But you don't want to do nothing out of ignorance. You want to do nothing out of intelligence and strategy. And that's, the nuance there. Avoid panic selling. Avoid action for action's sake. Avoid the strategy of, they said that the market is going to be, going down the drain. So I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to go to G. Great. What's your plan to get out of G? Because you can't stay in G for the rest of your life in 99.9% of cases. Because G, we have another article on the blog that's great that covers this. Matt Kramer, one of our very talented advisors here, looked at, does the G fund actually outperform inflation? And over the long term, 30 years, sure. Over the 5-year and 10-year period, less so. And the thing about your TSP is, for many of you, most of your balance is pre-tax, and I can promise you that G fund is going to underperform inflation and taxes every single time. Okay? So keep a long-term perspective. By long-term in this context, I mean 5+ years. Okay? If you have less than 5 years in your plan and your financial plan, if you're not going to be with us in 5 years, then you shouldn't be in equities anyway. But most of us can afford at least 5+ years in our long-term perspective. There are some measured moves that you can make. Okay? If you are on the younger side of things and you have several years until retirement, we could look at buying some dips, right? As things dip, if we do see volatility in the S&P 500, as that C fund comes down, it could be a strategy for you to buy up that C fund, okay? If you are closer to your retirement and you're looking to kind of take some chips off the table, you may look at slightly increasing your F or G allocation. Notice that I'm saying things like measured moves, slightly increasing, looking at potentially buying some of the dip. I am not saying move 100% of your balance to C fund, buy the dip, or move everything to G fund. It's all going to burn down, right? Overall, what you're going to want to do is make sure that the moves that you're taking in your TSP align with your overall financial plan. If you don't have a financial plan, you need one. You need to get one. Not everybody needs a planner that they work with on an ongoing basis. Everybody needs a plan. because the plan is where you ground and you lock in when the markets get volatile, and that avoids you panic running from stocks to equities and losing a bunch of money. So look at, some things to be looking at, right? If you haven't checked your TSP allocation in a while, maybe it's a good idea to log in, take a look at it. Just some kind of rules of thumb here. If you are trading in your TSP, if you're doing a contribution allocation, that's only going to apply to new money that's coming into that TSP. If you do a reallocation, you can change the allocations of your existing balance in the TSP. You can do both at once, and that's fine. That kind of keeps your portfolio closer to your model on an ongoing basis as you continue to fund it, okay? If you are in L funds, one thing to know about the L funds is that they do auto rebalance daily, so you don't need to make manual rebalance adjustments there. The only thing with the L funds is that they're optimizing around one factor and one factor only, and that's your age, really your desired retirement date, but essentially age. And not everybody who retires in the year 2065 is going to have the same goals. Some of those people want to spend $5,000 a month. Some of those people want to spend $15,000 a month. They should have radically different investment allocations if that's the case, okay? So here's a checklist for you, all right? Let's say that, the media's right and, we're going to get through the holidays and then we have a really, really bad holiday hangover in the form of some market volatility. Here's your checklist, all right? Review your target allocation. Make sure that it aligns with your long-term goals. If you have no idea how to allocate and you just refuse to email askstws@stwserve.com, pick an L fund that most closely aligns
That's called the
your
hard way,
retirement
Katelyn.
date. Yeah. Vaya con Dios to you if that's you, all right? But pick an L fund so that at least you have some diversification. Don't say I never did anything for you. All right, schedule rebalancing quarterly, all right? Those L funds, remember, they're on auto rebalance, but if you're doing a diversified portfolio with those 5 core funds, you need to make sure that you've got some rebalancing. Quarterly is good. Semi-annually also good. You want to make sure that if you aren't on an automated schedule, you're looking at it at least once a year. Respect your transfer limits and batch adjustments. Keep making contributions, okay? Do not do this thing of we are headed for disaster and so I'm not going to plan for a future because I don't have one. Don't do that. Don't do that. Keep making contributions. That dollar cost averaging in a down market, it will really pay off in the future, because when the market drops, if you're putting money in, stocks are on sale, okay? So take advantage of that sale, all right? Take that Black Friday energy, apply it to your portfolio. And lastly, and this one is probably the most important, avoid emotional decisions, okay? I know that action feels good. Channel it into something that's healthy for you. Take a walk, right? Oh my gosh, I've just watched an hour of this news coverage and I'm convinced that we are all headed for doom and gloom. Take a walk, take a 30-minute walk, do something. Move your body physically. You would be amazed at how much better you'll feel after that and how you can kind of use that as a lever to avoid blowing up your financial portfolio. The other thing that I'll say there is get a third party who is educated, who can guide you, who you can send an email to. And if you're my client and you're listening to this, I know you know. Get somebody you can email and say, oh my gosh, Katelyn, I'm so scared. What's going on? Tell me all the things we've done to prepare. And then that person, if they're an STWS advisor, then they're going to send you an email back and say, here's why you don't need to panic. Here is the plan. Here's what we're doing. Here's what will happen if markets continue to go up. And here's what will happen if they go down, right? So that is really, really, really helpful to kind of have that third party who is slightly removed, who can speak about it from an educated perspective, okay? Remember this, volatility is normal, okay? I always tell my clients, we're going to go through good markets and we're going to go through bad markets. I sure hope we are, because I'm not trying to have somebody just be a client for 7 years, right? We're in it for the long term. We're going to be in it when we feel like rock stars and we're making money, and we're going to be in it when we feel like we're taking punches. We plan for both outcomes, okay? So that's that on that. Hopefully that was helpful. A little fireside chat on TSP. I really hope this episode isn't prescient. Knock on wood. Hopefully you're thinking, why is this woman talking to me about volatility? We're making money like crazy. But save this episode and come back to it if we do have volatility on the horizon, because it will come.
Absolutely. And I think that does it, right?
That's it. Yeah. No, that's it. We were able to get through going over articles again after 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's true. We managed it. So that is all of our time for today, and a little extra. But we'll be back next week to bring you all the latest updates that you need to make informed decisions about your career and your financial well-being as a Fed, and even talk you off the cliff sometimes if you need it.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And be sure, hit that subscribe button. Dead serious. Not enough of you are subscribing. So you need to do that. So we're always pushing, letting you know when we've got things going up. So you never miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and please remember to share it with your friends and colleagues.
Absolutely. And for more information on the topics that we covered in today's episode and so much more, be sure to check out our blog at blog.stwserb.com. While you're there, you can subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving, so that you can get all the latest news for Feds delivered straight to your inbox every week.
Absolutely. And don't forget those live webinars that we do every single month and most weeks. So a couple that you don't want to miss that are coming up. On December 12th, it's TSP, which Katelyn just talked about, incredibly popular, from 11 till 2. And your host on that will be Katelyn. Then on December 16th, we've got our financial planning webinar, also incredibly popular, also from 11 till 2, and also with Katelyn. So it's all Katelyn all the time. Be sure to check those out and look at the rest of the menu. While you're in there, there's a lot of stuff in there. And we build that specifically for you so that you have the ability to learn on your own. Or if you want some help, we're there as well. And if you're looking for something a little more personalized, a little more individual, Katelyn mentioned part 2. What is part 2? Everything that has come across your eyes and into your mind about federal benefits so far, that's part 1. That's all that general information's out there. But what we've learned is as that comes in, the question morphs from what is it and how does it work to, what's mine going to look like and how's that going to affect me and my family? So that's why we do what we call part 2. So we're going to help you make sense of all of it and get to making the best decisions. So that's meetings at STWSerb.com. If you'd like to check that out, we are happy to speak with you.
Wonderful. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Fed15. I'm Katelyn Murray.
And I am in the pink Dan Sipe.
And we will see you next week.